Good evening, everyone. It is 8:50 p.m. Mountain Time, August 26, 2023. Infinite Plane Radio, open phones for open minds. Phones are now open. The number will be up on the screen momentarily. Let me remove the replay tag. We are live, as they say. And there you go. Number on the screen, 505-349-0420. I just sent out notifications, so we'll give everyone a few moments to arrive. The big talk has been the mug shot scene around the world. How many takes what did that require? How much did he practice? And it makes perfect sense that they would need that in order to move forward with the martyrdom agenda. I mean, no martyr goes without having some kind of an icon, some kind of thing, symbol, some like Che Guevara, for example, Jesus Christ. Every one of these martyrs, they have something to represent them, and I think Trump now has something for history. That face that he made, which has really triggered the left, emboldened the right, was designed to look that way. And it really stands out from the rest of the mugshots, which have larger stars in the background, different lighting. He's got nice lighting on the top of his hair. Very flattering. And I noticed a lot of cringe, fake grassroots attempts to make it look like, oh, because he's been in jail, he's now got street cred. And they're really promoting blacks for Trump. And it just looks like paid shills. And it's not really a conservative thing anyway to delve into racial politics or identity group politics on that level. It seems very shilly. But regardless, the fact that he's gone to jail doesn't give him street cred. It means he got caught doing something. It's not like he's a victim. And the idea that, oh, well, if they can get him, they can get me. Well, sure. If I do what he does, I would expect that they would try to get me. Regardless, the show goes on, joined here by Rome, Zin Vallis, Phase Polarizer. Commenter says George Floyd has a sex tape. Yeah, that's well known. It's very well known. In fact, that's where a lot of people saw his tattoo. What is his name again? Big Floyd or something? But yeah, there's nothing new about that information. It doesn't make him a bad person just because he's a criminal or a drug addict. None of that justifies what happened, but what happened was totally a psyop, so in the end it doesn't really matter. It's all code. I can't breathe. Anagram, a better China. BLM, the vanguard of the communist revolution. There's your better China as we move into a Chinese system. When the social credits kick off, I hope these deleted, blocked, banned YouTube channels don't count against me. I'm like so in the negative. Joined by Oswaldo, thank you for joining. Again, this is a new channel. This is like channel number 160. And that's fine. You know, I have no problem with that because we have built our own thing. The parallel media is live, it is a thing, and we are just the epicenter of it. The epicenter of this meme virus pandemic, which is just now starting to really take off. And I'm going to be doing a lot more networking so we can build out this parallel media and make it self-aware. That's the key. A lot of people just graft themselves into alternative media because they don't trust elite media, but they trust Tucker Carlson on Twitter because that's not elite media. You know, when he's there with President Trump, I'm like, how are people buying this? He's like, look, guys, I'm not guardrailed. I'll talk about JFK and UFOs. Unbelievable. This fake grassroots, astro-turfed world stage, and people just fall for it. It looks faker than The Truman Show. Faker than that Barbie movie. Faker than that Wes Anderson flick. But we are going to be joined tomorrow by the fakeologist, speaking of. In fact, a fakeologist and I will be speaking on the regular on a number of topics, but it's been a couple of months. So tomorrow at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, join us at Infinite Plane Radio, and I will send out text alerts because I want to get the biggest crowd possible. And if you have any questions, you want to call in, it will be open. OO says you rock IPS, much respect. Yeah, look, we're here for the long term. We are really the core of something that is completely separate from all of the gate-kept, guard rail, tainted red pill menthol BS. Like we see through it all. This is the new age. This is the age of Aquarius. They're flooding the zone so no one can put two and two together. They don't want people to have the big picture or a big picture except for the vision they're given. And the truth is out there, but it's adrift in a sea of irrelevance. And what we're doing here is we're giving it relevance. We're providing a context and a structure. Joined by we says, I hope your evening is going swimmingly. Yeah, that is what you call a group of penguins on the water, a raft. That's what I've been saying, that the Auto Hoaxology 101 textbook is a flotation device. In fact, the first copies will be arriving early next week, probably Monday. And then after that, I will be placing a large order, and it will become one of my main priorities to really get that book out there. Okay, continuing. We've been talking about Donald Trump's mugshot. The whole world has been talking about it. And someone remarked on it that it seems to have the Kubrick stare. Now, if you're not familiar with the Kubrick stare, think of not Gomer Pyle, what was his name in Full Metal Jacket? The one who shot himself. They called him Gomer Pyle. Like, didn't your mom and dad hug you enough when you were a child? And then he shoots the sergeant. Let's see here, going through the names. And this was the one that starred Matthew Modine as Joker. And Joker actually represents JFK. There's a fascinating subtext to all of Kubrick's flicks and how it ties into the Kennedys that we should look at some point here. But yeah, the mental patient shoots himself in the movie, and he's got that deranged stare that Jack Nicholson had in The Shining. And The Shining is well known for its references to Apollo 11. Like, look, Stanley Kubrick felt so bad for lying to us that he had to drop hints in this pretty horrible movie. I mean, I guess if you like movies about psychopathy and just mental illness and just gore, I guess it's cool. A lot of abuse. I don't understand the value of it. I think a lot of it's just trauma-induced mind control. Maybe I'm missing something. But with The Shining, you have hints that he was involved in Apollo 11. You also have predictive programming for 9/11. All over the place. The two elevators opening, the blood pouring out, the twins representing the Twin Towers. They weren't twins in the book. The kid on the tricycle going down the hallway towards the twins, and he cuts left, and then you see them on the ground, cut up, chair overturned, axe on the ground, like the fireman's axe from 9/11. I mean, these were scenes that we saw later. He's throwing darts, and the twins are right there, adjacent to a phone booth that says Bell. Well, the Twin Towers were next to the Bell Tower, the Bell headquarters there. And then you had the Hilton Millennium Hotel overlooking Ground Zero, a big black Kubrick monolith. But that's just one example. Kubrick's films all contain these types of hints about his involvement. Not just him. We're not talking about, oh, did this one guy trick everybody? No, he's part of a department, part of the space program. And the space program is not some kind of endeavor to take you out there to Mars or the rings of Saturn or whatever. The whole purpose of the space program is controlling well, yeah, just say it's controlling your inner space, your mind. It's always been that. The idea of space travel, it has been pretty much revealed as of late. If you ask me, it's pretty blatantly obvious now. Space travel is just Masonic allegory for higher states of consciousness. And I actually have something here I wanted to bring up in that regard. But Kubrick's films, going back to the very first Dr. Strangelove, with the bomb, the low-flying attack, like the Pentagon attack, released on JFK's death day, that kind of stuff. By the way, Donald Trump's mugshot has been referred to as the Mona Lisa of mugshots. And looking at it, I can see where they've arrived at it. Like, it's somewhat ambiguous. Half of his face is scowling, the other half is kind of grinning. Almost a Joker sneer effect. Like, bravo. I mean, really. He worked at it. That's his blue steel, as I've seen it referred to. as in steal, Steal, an election, the whole election theft thing. Again, we're looking at this idea of space travel as Masonic allegory for higher states of consciousness. And here's how I arrive at this. I have this graphic on the screen, and we discussed this stuff quite a lot, and I don't want to overdo it, but we were right, and I have evidence of it right here. So the SpaceX prepares for a massive test this week, firing all 33 Starship engines at once. The 33 is a reference to the 33 segments of the spine, and the igniting 33 references the Kundalini fire snake, igniting the 33 segments of the spine, taking us to heaven or space, from the kingdom to the crown, as you would call it in the chakras. Kingdom to the crown, earth to heaven, 33, ascension. And if you look at the tree of life, the Kabbalistic tree of life, as a sort of a model of the universe, which is what I think it's meant to represent, a cosmology. We're at the base, which is the kingdom, black. At the very top is white, that's the crown. And there's a snake climbing the tree, going around these spheres, like these Sephiroth, I believe they call them, with these colored globes, which are all named after the planets, which is kind of interesting. They have associations, rather, with the planets. And what I'm suggesting here is, again, space travel is just allegory, and the snake climbing the tree may even be the snake that has that tongue you see, the red snake's tongue on the NASA logo. My point being that not only had we already examined all of this and put this together and concluded that this is all allegory for ascending from the material realm to the heavenly, but what I found out more recently is that the escape velocity is Mach 33, meaning you have to travel 33 times the speed of sound to leave the gravitational pull of the Earth. So gravity ties into the concept of the grave, the gravel, the earth itself, but also the idea of the soul in bondage or the soul imprisoned in matter. And to exit matter, it's the Mach 33. And we see this represented in many different areas, but in space travel in particular, even the Kennedy spaceport, the landing strip, the takeoff strip is, I think it's strip 33. They're giving it away here in their symbolism because we know for a fact they're not actually going to quote space, whatever that is. Let's see, going through your comments. Joined by Configuration Manager Diana South says, Happy Saturday. Ears Up says, what month do you think the lockdown begins? Well, if you're in the Infinite Plane Society and you're an Infinite Plane Radio Press Pass carrier, the lockdown never begins because you are essential as media. Although I suspect it's going to have to begin soon because the whole point of it, I think, is to affect the elections in favor of the Democrats or something. Conrad Madness has joined us from D-Live. Cubstar, Lane Dion, Jennifer Reeves, awesome. Okay, we have about 33 here in the chat. We can now ascend. We're talking about the Kubrick stare and how Donald Trump is sort of exhibiting that. Also, Clockwork Orange, same thing. Fascinating. I happen to think Eyes Wide Shut, by the way, which was released on the day JFK Jr. crashed and died. Eyes Wide Shut is a reference to your subconscious mind that is always receptive to all of the programming. Which is why they don't care if you don't pay attention. Why would they? Got a comment from Alex over there at Rockfin. Maybe this is obvious, but it just hit me. You mentioned that the altar is used as a microcosm during a ritual to alter reality. Interesting, it's the same word phonetically. Alter AR, alter ER. And we were talking about the Barbie movie, where the Wizards of Mattel are quite literally using the Barbie doll, Barbie land, in some kind of a magical ritual in order to convince the women of the world that the patriarchy isn't secretly in control. And then Barbie breaks the spell. But yes, absolutely. Interesting phonetic connection. And that's really what it comes down to. When you study or look at the theory of magic and what makes it work according to those who practice it, according to the various esoteric traditions, it all comes down to the words that we use and the intent. And the language itself is considered to be intrinsically, quote, magical. In some way, it affects reality. Think of it, God, there's the darkness, and then let there be light. The idea that it's all nothingness, just um, a void until it's spoken into existence or perceived into existence. And I think that the basis for a lot of their magical, if you want to call it that, um, language, of course, is the correlations that can be made phonetically and grammatically, as well as the numerology that is also attached to it. And we often see people doing that with gematria, where you simply calculate the numerical value of a particular word and see how it associates with other words. And that is what we see quite often is this gematria or numerology type programming into inculcated into everything. It's there. Now, is it a way that you can predict things? I don't think so. Not on that level. I mean, it kind of depends. The only thing I've ever found any predictive value in is predictive programming itself, which is sensible, makes perfect logical sense considering that the whole purpose to this quote predictive programming is to bore out those neural pathways to get you to pre-accept something, something illogical, something extraordinary. And people just tend to believe it because they've been conditioned to believe it, which is not the same as knowing it, but we don't live in a world of knowers. The world stage is competing groups of believers. I was listening to a podcast today, some right winger, and the main talking point I'm hearing from the right is that the reason why people died in Maui, the reason why 1,000 kids got incinerated by the direct energy weapons, they got the Maui blast, is that the police blocked them in and they all got incinerated. Like, that's their storyline. And it's like, well, where are these 1,000 kids that people like Mike Cernovich are crying over? They're crisis acting over kids that don't exist. Like, maybe they didn't get the memo, but fake dead kids' lives don't matter. You know, I said that to Alex Stein on Twitter and he blocked me. I'm like, Alex, fake dead kids' lives don't actually matter. He's over there at Uvalde crying, weeping, emoting, getting all histrionic before the city council. And that's when I realized, okay, he's just another one of them. Just as bad as the Sandy Hookers, just as bad as Robbie Parker. All right, continuing here. Truth Hurts 21 says, what happened to the people? Well, here's what happened to the people on 9/11. I'm saying that it was a closed set, is what I'm suggesting. A closed movie set. And they kept everybody out. Not because you would go in and see a bunch of burned up kids, but because you would go in and see a bunch of green screens. Lean Dion says, tragic escalation from the incompetent police at Uvalde. Now, that's one of the commonalities with all of these. The left wing says, oh, it's because guns and gun culture. And the right wing says it's because of antidepressants and the police are a bunch of cowards. But you'll notice that all of these shootings where the shooter is a left winger, like a trans activist shooter, like in Nashville with the manifesto they haven't released yet, in all of those, the police always come off as heroes. So whenever the shooting is targeted at the right wing, whenever the psyop is aimed at them, they have a happy ending. Well, rather, they have an ending where you see the cop, first person shooter style, taking out the bad guy. Nashville, if you haven't paid a lot of attention to that event, the Nashville Covenant school shooting at 33 whatever street with 3 teachers, 3 students, etc., that whole psyop is pretty much a right wing Sandy Hook. It made them care about mass shootings. They didn't care before. It's kind of funny how selective they are. I asked Jack Posobiec this. I said, hey, look, you're crying about 1,000 kids that may not even exist, but you do believe that all these kids are dying in these mass shootings. You don't care about kids who die of AR-15? You only care if they die of direct energy weapons? But it is true. They love their martyr narratives, and that's all they care about. There's nothing that makes Democrats happier than a pile of dead kids to grandstand on top of, to attack the Second Amendment. Joined by Alan Smith says, just got my show. Yes, you're catching us live. Just got your notification. Oh, you from your show. What is your show called? Put a link there. I'm trying to make it a point to network a lot more with other people who are in the know. And if you're listening here, if you have been listening to Infinite Plane Radio, I assume that you've been inoculated against the mind war, that you're in the know, and that you're not in the world of believers. Okay, let me play this bit of cringe for you. I just want to show you how desperate Fox News is to seem credible to the masses. You know, they try to pretend like they're populists. Like, oh yeah, we care about the little guy, Tucker Carlson. You know what Tucker Carlson said about the January 6th insurrectionists? He said, oh, they're a bunch of terrorists. And he said, not the classy Saudi kind, but the cousin effing kinds. Tucker said that. Tucker said that the QAnon shaman F's his own cousin, basically. Let me see if I can get a direct quote for you here. Oh yeah, here we go. This is so bad. Unbelievable. Tucker Carlson's producer caught in Dominion texts. Here we go. Tucker Carlson, Trump election deniers, cousin effing terrorists. Dumb cousin effing terrorists. That's pretty bad. Anyway, my point is, I just think that these are all fake populists. And they try to sound credible. They try to sound like they have some street cred. So now Trump's been arrested, and they're claiming that suddenly now the blacks are going to vote for Trump, like in some kind of monolith. And it's the Democrats who have always treated votes in racial blocks, but now the right's doing it. So we got the black vote now because Trump's got a mugshot. Like, I find this to be somewhat tone deaf. I mean, I don't know what to call this, but let me play this cringe. This is Laura Ingraham.
That mugshot situates Trump in a cultural context that I'm not sure his enemies may have anticipated. Now he joins Frank Sinatra. He joins Elvis Presley. He joins Johnny Cash and Tupac Shakur. And he didn't only know some of these people, meaning he is now seen by non-political folks as a rebel. And
folks. You see, because they're appealing to the folks.
Outsider with swagger. And as one black lady I spoke with earlier today here in New Orleans said,
now, do you believe that? Does anybody believe this? I mean, bring her on the show. Let's hear her say it. This is some guy's secondhand account of how somebody, one of the folks, came and told him that now Trump has some kind of credibility. Give me a break.
And as one black lady I spoke with earlier today here in New Orleans said, Trump's a gangster. And that means he has cred among a new block of voters that perhaps...
Cred among a new block of voters. Again, this is how they think. It's pretty... Well, I don't know what you want to call it. It's just so ham-fisted. That's Fox for you, I guess. Okay, moving on here. So much to talk about. This is another example of the type of crisis acting that we've been seeing at Maui. This lady talks about the horrific events that were happening behind the curtains of Maui. She said, Marines on the scene found 250 bullet-ridden corpses, and the wounds were consistent with those used by FEMA and the FBI. So there are other accounts that FEMA and the FBI are warring with the white hats. QAnon is basically sharing a lot of this stuff. And it's all second-hand, third-hand accounts from what look to be actors. Like, these people are hired to recite these things. Let me play this clip.
This discussion of what's going on behind the scenes in Maui. There's a lot of suspicious things that are happening, and I'll talk about those at the end. But I want to present some articles. These I obtained from realrawnews.com, so you can go look them up for yourself and read them.
Realrawnews.com, is it one of those that always publish things about, oh, today Vin Diesel was executed? Like, these people are insane, and you'll see. I've been blocked by a lot of my favorite Q Twitter accounts with their fan fiction. They block me because I call it fan fiction, but that is what it is. We'll go through some of those, but here we have someone giving us second or third or fourth hand information. Her hashtags, look, save the children, Maui fires. My point being, they went from save the children in the tunnels to save the children being trafficked from Mexico, to save the children in Maui. This is a thing that the right is doing that the left does. The left is all concerned with saving children that don't exist, like the ones who are killed at all these fake shootings, and the right is now always glomming on to these children they gotta save.
In Maui to deny fire victims food and water, to inhibit civilian relief efforts, to stop by any means necessary displaced persons from exiting fire-ravaged Lahaina.
Now, this is a long one. She's raging for a bit, but let me get to the point where she talks about the Marines fighting the deep state or whatever. I mean, where are they getting this from? Marines on the scene found 250 bullet-ridden corpses? But we're supposed to believe that this is an objective source, that this isn't some kind of shill, which is what I'm saying it is. And I've seen nothing but similar types of shillery around this entire event. Diana South says the Crisis Actor Guild has moved to Hawaii. Those are counted as jobs in our booming economy. Yeah, absolutely. That's what it seems like. It seems like all the ones that were trying to guilt trip you into watching that movie Save the Children or Sound of Freedom have now moved on. Here's an example of the Q insanity, how they live in a parallel universe, how this is by design, how they took the people who were critical of the news, who knew it was fake, and they put them into a separate reality where they have been quarantined. I'm starting to think that's what Q stands for. Quarantine the freethinkers, because the NPCs are just going to naturally go along with whatever they're served. But this is the type of stuff that they're promoting. This is Q Mom Nancy. She's a self-described QAnon grandma. So she has grandchildren. Just scary thought here. She says, this is a poster of Vin Diesel. These Satan worshippers do everything for their master. Vin Diesel was executed 2 years ago. You're supposed to be happy. Like, oh yeah, Vin Diesel was executed. Excellent. I'm trying to figure out how that's a good thing. I really am. So I took it over to my AI chatbot friend, and I asked my AI chatbot, I said, hey, would you expound upon this? And here's what AI chatbot said. Now, I'm doing this, just so you know, I'm doing this because they're engaging in fan fiction. They're making stuff up. So I'm adding to it. My fellow Americans, I stand before you today with joy in my heart, for we're finally rid of that scourge of the silver screen Vin Diesel. For so long, this so-called actor has polluted our cinemas with his mindless action vehicles full of fast cars, cheap thrills, and devoid of artistic merit. We enter a new era of mature, sophisticated filmmaking, when depth of character and power of narrative reign supreme over flashy stunts and special effects. Goodbye, Vin Diesel. Good riddance. Your fast cars and furious antics will pollute our screens no more. American cinema thanks you. Oh, thanks me, your Q mom. Anyway, this is what I'm saying. She's the Q mom who's always just cheering on these dead celebrities. And they're dead in her mind. I'm just trying to imagine what it must be like to be some retiree, some grandma, sitting at home fantasizing over all these celebrities being executed, and then somehow finding it some cause to celebrate. But I guess you could make a point that, yeah, his movies were terrible. But terrible enough to warrant an execution? Another one by Q Mom. Here she is fawning over Barron Trump, and she superimposed his face over Donald Trump. And it says Trump 2048. And it says here, so much like his father. I'm like, wow, wait. What are we talking about here? So much like his father. We're talking about Barron Trump in 2048. Like, what does this even mean? That Trump doesn't defeat the deep state? That we got to wait another 20 some years? And he looks 12 in this picture. It's not even appropriately aged. But they do believe that Barron Trump is a time traveler, and he might be the one to save us if this Trump doesn't do it. Tomanoid3 says, it sounds like one of those old sci-fi conspiracy things. Super secret elite space team took out underwater reptoid headquarters. That sounds exactly like where they're at. And it's getting kind of biblical these days as well. They're really pushing the end times. They're Christianizing it. In fact, one of them came out, one of these noners, these QAnoners came out blowing a horn some kind of biblical ritual in order to invite the Holy Spirit into their QAnon meeting. And I think it's called a, what is it called? The ram's horn that they blow? Let me go ahead and play it. This is a clip here at Reawaken America in Vegas. This was today. Headlined by Eric Trump and Mike O'Flynn. And this is the one with the big painting of Donald Trump with a lightning Q behind his head. This is a Q convention. It's a shofar. So here they are calling to the gods with the shofar, and I think it's clogged. I think this was supposed to be meaningful, like Trump, trumpet, God's blowing the trumpet or something. And yeah, they can barely get anything out of it. They would have been better with a kazoo. Should have rehearsed that. But that's the Reawaken America. That didn't wake anybody up. And this is the Great Awakening versus the Great Reset. Red versus blue. Definitely not controlled opposition. And definitely not a cult that literally thinks that Trump is Jesus or something. Or no, Moses, excuse me. He got promoted. Jim Caviezel is Jesus, and he's out there saving the children with Tim Ballard. Like, someone needs to call Tim Ballard and send him to Maui. He can parachute in and save the children. I've even seen theories that the children were actually picked up and taken into child trafficking. Maybe he can intercept them as they're being brought in through the southern border. Let me play a clip here. This is Alex Jones talking about how, quote, I think about the end way too much, but it's fun to fantasize.
They don't even know God's real. All they know is the devil. I watch these videos, these transgender males. Well, see, I mean, folks, we're already so far gone that nuclear war is just the cleansing, you see.
Nuclear war is just the cleansing. Now, I want to make a point here that just because we know the news is fake and a construct and it's worldview warfare, just because we know they use psyops and perception management and they're all liars, built, and their whole media infrastructure is built upon an edifice of lies. Just because we know this doesn't mean we're on Team InfoWars. I don't see a difference between InfoWars and the mainstream. In fact, if you really look, I found out that Super Male Vitality is produced by the same company, and it's the same formula, actually, of the stuff that is sold by Gwyneth Paltrow called Sex Scoop. So Gwyneth Paltrow's Sex Scoop is literally Super Male Vitality. And I'm like, wait a minute here. You got the red pill Super Male Vitality, you got Gwyneth Paltrow blue pill Sex Goop. How does that work? Well, turns out that red pills and blue pills have the same manufacturer. If the blue pills don't work on you, the red is the backup. That's what I mean when I say that I do not identify our work, our think tank with InfoWars. We're not on their world stage with its red pill perimeter and its blue pill center. We're actually outside of it. Let's continue.
I'd rather just stop the infection and not cleanse us all, but
Images of nuclear
I mean,
bombs.
you're all dead. And just like the Bible teaches that the rich men of the earth in the end times will be under the mountains wishing they could die. And I got to tell God this. I kind of get it. If we can't save our children, and if we can't turn this around,
Save the children. Anyway, not going to play too much more. I'm just pointing out that this doom boofing, this preparing for the end, the Bubba effect, run for the hills, they're coming for our guns, stock up on food, get some iodine for the fallout. This is really the same type of paranoid mindset that the left has. So you can laugh at people with their masks and their desire that everyone quarantine and that we just lock down for the climate. But I'm saying that both the red and the blue pill are guilty of using the same exact structured worldview, which involves basically the end of time being right around the corner. We talked about Oliver Anthony, who's sick of right wing politicians, media influencers using his song. He says the song isn't about Biden, it's written about the people on the stage. Yeah, he turned down the $8 million. We talked about this individual. Totally not fake grassroots, totally not astroturfed, right? People fell for it, though. The right wing took the bait, just like they did, just like they're saying that, hey, now we have street cred because they're so desperate for street cred. They're like, look, Trump has a mugshot. Now the folks like him. And they saw Oliver Anthony and they assumed he was one of theirs. They're so desperate to appear to be one of you. And also, one more thing. I saw some stories about the oceans boiling in Maui. And just a couple weeks ago, the UN said that we were entering the age of global boiling. No way that's a coincidence. Ireland's media minister says under the DSA, every state will designate a body when it comes to misinformation on the internet. We've been talking a little bit about this, about how there's going to be a new level of regulation and censorship on the internet to get rid of misinformation, but the burden of it is being placed on big social media. It's called the Digital Service Acts package, and this is all, again, it says here to ensure businesses and citizens can use online platforms no matter where they are. But here's what it means.
Misinformation on social media platforms, and your own government's electoral commission will fulfill a similar role nationally. So is it not dangerous for democracy that powerful state institutions will get to decide what is and isn't true?
I think this is actually a very important development for Ireland. So while the European Commission leads on implementation and enforcement, provides the member states to share.
And anyway, the best way to describe this is the objective of censoring the internet is just being outsourced. That's all. A number of people have shared images of Martin Luther King adjacent to Donald Trump because both of them have been to the Fulton County Sheriff's Office, and a lot of people were rightfully upset by this comparison. Why is this even a juxtaposition? But I want to point out that Trump's first arraignment on 4/4/2023 was on the 55th anniversary of MLK's assassination. MLK was associated with Moses. His final speech at Mason Temple was about the promised land that Moses didn't live to actually see. I mean, it was left to those after him. And I'm suggesting that MAGA is a similar, quote, promised land. And they're setting up this martyrdom narrative, and Trump may not see MAGA. That's kind of the idea here of this association. It's very cynical, the way they manipulate the public by using anniversary dates and by using symbolism and all of the various media platforms to reinforce certain ideas. They have been Christifying Trump pretty heavily for some time. Truth Hurts 21 says, will they bring a new variant this fall and try it again? See, the trouble with it is, the first one, they managed to scare everyone like sheep. They managed to make it happen because they tied it in, I think, really close to spring break. People were getting on planes, a lot of traveling. They just aimed for maximum pandemonium. In fact, I saw the headline pandemonium at the airports. It was a very common headline term. Pandemonium, pandemic. No coincidences here. I mean, when we get into the symbolism of the whole thing, it's mind-blowing. Like, oh, the One World Trade Tower. It looks like a big needle. And as it was being built, people were commenting on how it was basically a big pipe, like a flute, and the wind was blowing through it. And they heard these sounds. They said, oh, these are the ghosts of 9/11 or something. But it was literally a flute, but it looks like a syringe. And the word syringe comes from the Greek word syrinx, which is Pan's flute. And Pan is where we get the word panic. And of course, the whole panicdemic, big needle, it's all tied in there. In a nice monolithic tower that's 1,776 feet tall, standing up there to represent the one world. It's just another Tower of Babel reference. It opened on an 11/3, which is also very significant in the bigger story. 3/11 is when the thing started. Angst G says, "What's up with that Alex Jones raspy, coarse voice?" I think it's from years of observing chemtrails and sitting in the bunker, truthing. That's what I get out of it. That's what I used to think. I was like, this guy's been in the bunker. He's been talking. His voice is all used up, vocal fry. He's been out there with the chemtrails, and it's just wearing on him. Or it's an act. It's one or the other. Jay Digg says, I feel like it's going to be some kind of cyber pandemic where only approved sites will say active. See, now you're right. This is the exact agenda, and I've been saying this recently, that the whole purpose to the scamdemics was censorship. They needed to educate the public, condition the public, and prepare the public for the advent of the thought crime and the mind virus. There's a very good series called Hot Skull, and it's about how in the future they have to lock everybody down because you have certain individuals who are saying things that are spreading these, quote, mind viruses. And people are mandated to wear earplugs in public. Well, that's quite literally where we're at, and they had to walk us to it. It started with safe spaces, which were on college campuses to protect leftists from right-wing ideas. Then it became social distancing, which eventually became associated with being protected from right-wingers, physically, because they're super spreaders, and their ideas, because they're anti-vax, anti-science. So they turn this safe space into state-mandated safe spaces into now an argument for maintaining a permanent sort of mental safe space. And this was foreshadowed in the summer of 2020 when a number of influencers like Kim Kardashian, quote, froze their social media accounts for a period of time. They did so to protest conspiracy theories. And if you remember Christchurch, the follow-up to Christchurch, which was fake, but following that, I mean, they shut down BitChute because they didn't want that fake video getting out. They shut down a number of, 4chan, and they were cutting off access. So what my point is, they were already preparing for what happens if a mind virus they want to contain gets loose. Shut down this site, block these accounts, can we isolate it? And it's more likely that's the case anyway. There was this exercise that was being planned called Cyber Polygon, and when Cyber Polygon was supposed to happen, it was one of these tabletop exercises, simulations, and drills. It got canceled, but on that day, there was a major disruption in the communications in Canada. Major communications disruptions, ATMs being shut down. So you can see that the drill went live. And a lot of the predictive programming we've seen with like Maui, with the Maui Blast, the follow-up to Maui Blast, I believe, is I think the can is called, here we go, Mountain Dew Pitch Black. Endless predictive programming for blackouts. But I don't think the blackout is power going off, although I do think the grid's going to likely be attacked. That's part of the Turner Diaries white nationalist versus the globalist narrative. But I do think that they are going to do some kind of internet blackout, internet quarantine, controlling mind viruses. They're already doing it. It's already being done. All right, let us continue. We were just discussing these crisis actors painting a picture of what's going on in Ireland. Talking about the new laws designed to pretty much get the big media companies to do the work of censorship. Now, this is something that's interesting. NFL is doing damage control. Jake Gibson broke them. Not just him, but many people have been pointing out that NFL and all the sports are scripted and fake. And this is just absolutely true. Like it or not, they're scripted and fake. Well, here you have NFL 104, again, script table read. take a look. This is suggesting in a parody that their 104th season is all scripted and they're just going over it, just like the WWE. In other words, the NFL is creating content to mock or parody the idea that they're scripted. It's damage control.
Juicy from midseason.
What if I got a ring to match this ice?
Speaking of Super Bowl,
Big Kirko wakes up dripping like this.
Kirk. I like it, Kirko.
You like that?
Big Kirko, I'm loving it.
Fifth, we replaced the gritty with the sexy. Dexy. Sexy.
Now, you're looking at this, a little table read of the script for the next season of NFL.
Tiger?
I got a guy.
My man. Okay.
What if we ban sacks?
Woo!
What if we reveal that Tyreek Hill is actually part cheetah?
What if that Jimmy Garoppolo character fell in love with my character?
Steamy.
Now, the whole point of it, again,
Forbidden
there's a few videos
Can't
like
make this stuff up.
I think it's to bury. It says you can't make this stuff up. I think it's to bury the idea that it's scripted. They come out with an ad mocking those who say that it's scripted by showing them scripting things. And now the idea has been rendered into a joke. This is how this deluge of disinformation works. Stephen in the Twitter comment says, I really do believe it's scripted, especially after the no law, no call. But how do they keep all 3,000 people silent, or thousands of people silent, especially the older retired guys? What do you mean, how do they keep them silent? That is a valid question, but I would say it's kind of naive. You don't know the secrets of any big corporation. You know, there are levels, there's security clearances, need to know basis. There's secret societies, there are fraternities all over the place, and we do not know their secrets. How many people have been in the Skull and Bones Society? And how little do we actually know about their meetings? And you could say the same for many other secret societies, private organizations. The idea that thousands can keep a secret is not even an extraordinary idea to contemplate. It's like, of course they can. All the incentives in the world, money, fame, not to mention I think the idea of being part of an elite cadre, and I don't know how many would be in the know about the big picture because it would be necessarily compartmentalized. But if you take an example of Damar Hamlin, everyone who was kneeling around him was in on that ritual. Even the guy that wasn't kneeling, number 33, named Neil. An ex-running back from the Chicago Bears, Benny Cunningham, says they all signed non-disclosure agreements. He tweeted, the NFL is scripted, but they make us sign something so we can't go into detail. I'm tired of holding back. Rocco Calzone says die-hard sports fans can't see the strings. Right. Right, exactly, they can't. I don't know why. I guess it's because they're holding on to it. Because the news is obviously fake. It's a bunch of political grifters. It's just mud. And, you know, as Mark Twain said, never wrestle with the pig. You both get muddy, but the pig likes it. Maybe some people just don't want to get in the mud. It's like, let's stay with sports. And you can relate to sports because you've played sports. Maybe you played them in college or you know people who did. So you see sports from your perspective as athletics. And it's pure, therefore. It's not about ideology, it's about individual and team performance. I understand the attraction of sports and how this is a good escape because it's actually an escape into something that's real. Nobody wants to find out that's fake. But they're a bunch of babies if they can just ignore the information and get emotional about it. The fact that they have some kind of magnetic goalposts. And it's not just the NFL. You know, it's all the sports. They're all scripted. It's all ball worship. Ultimately, I think it's such a huge part of the worldview warfare that they cannot let it go. That they're controlling. It's not just the ads, but I think there's more than that. They're constantly using these sports to execute various rituals for predictive programming. Every Super Bowl. I mean, one of the first things that got me to look at the world stage differently is the Janet Jackson Super Bowl ritual, where it was quite obvious that this was timed with Candlemas, that this is some kind of ceremony of sun worship when they ripped the shirt off. That malfunction of her wardrobe was obviously by design, but what's the point? What does a bare-chested woman in a green field with a solar symbol mean on the first weekend of February? Well, it's Candlemas, it's Imbolc. She's Bridget, the goddess, and it represents the weaning of the sun god, represented by the blonde-haired Justin Timberlake, who was recently born, Christmas, and then throughout the year he grows up. So that was that particular ceremony. The previous one was quite obviously a super Babylon Bowl fertility rite with the moon goddess representative Rihanna in red, surrounded by the dancers in white. Not hard to decode that one. One of the more pertinent ones to right now, we're talking about blackouts. 10 years ago, Super Bowl 47 went dark for 33 minutes. They call it the Blackout Bowl. There's something to that one that's relevant to right now. Again, Super Bowl 47, we're about to enter what presidency, and Trump's running for number 47. 33 minutes of darkness. Beyonce was performing. That may be a clue. Colin Kaepernick was quarterback. That might also be a clue, considering he's something of like the titular head of BLM. And of course, the kneeling. And there was some drama between him and Trump. But my point of it is, that was the Blackout Bowl 47. So we have another blackout reference, and it ties into this upcoming election. Okay, moving on. Flat Earther next door. These are the U.S. states that have the highest number of these conspiracy theorists. For some reason, it's back in the news. And I can't be too specific, but there's a documentary on conspiracy theorists, and it's being produced by a news agency out of Europe, and they're going to be here at the IPS headquarters next month, the first and second week for a couple of days. I think the 6th, 7th, and 8th or something. I'll let you know. The whole point of it is they want to talk to people who have been ground zero around this particular subject, and they've taken an interest in the IPS and the Mad Mike Hughes story, among other things, but that was the start of it because of that New Yorker piece. So there is some interest. Well, this is from dailymail.co. The Flat Earther next door. These are the U.S. states with the highest share of conspiracy theorists based on residents' internet search history. Now think about that. They are looking at your search history to determine what you think, where you live, and then how many people think like you. This is interesting what they're doing. It sounds benign, but is it? Now here's the chart here. U.S. states with the most flat earthers. And it looks like the top states are, weirdly, now this is how it works. It says here, typing in 23,000 flat earth searches last year, or 314 per 10,000 residents. So this is per 10,000 residents. Alaska, 314. Number 2, Colorado, 312. Wyoming, 311. Washington, 301. New Jersey, Virginia, Kansas, Wisconsin, and Mississippi. These are the ones, oh, Hawaii is also represented here. These have the highest number of flat earthers per 10,000. If you go by the searches. It says Colorado natives came in a close second to the Alaskans. So the Alaskans are the most curious about it. Why is that? Yeah, watch list time. Colorado, there's been a lot of organizing there. New Jersey for some reason. So what is it about New Jersey and Alaska that is conducive to catching the flat earth mind virus? Now, I don't catch mind viruses. I carefully consider new ideas. I parse the facts. I arrive at conclusions based on facts. I don't just catch ideas. And I don't think you do either. However, the masses do. Blue pillars do. They have been programmed not to use critical thinking when it comes to the base assumptions that are established by what's on the screen. They just believe it. That's why I've been saying they have been conditioned not to use their mental immune system. They have mind aids and they just catch ideas. That's why this is so dangerous for them. They're like, okay, we can't let these ideas get out there because all these believers who believe whatever's on the screen will believe the wrong things. They can't trust people to filter their own thoughts. That's why they're doing censorship. Tominoid says, way to go, Wyoming. Yeah, Wyoming must look pretty flat. Alaska, though, that's very interesting. It's like they have some kind of perspective. Okay, continuing. I'm going through my minds.com. We're just noticing how many of these articles are popping up, the flat earth topic. And I want to point out that the news organization from Europe, and I'm not going to be specific yet, that are on the way over here, they don't seem to have any preconceptions like a lot of the coverage that we're like accustomed to. Like usually it's a hit piece. I don't get the sense that this is a hit piece. Not that I care. Like let's say it is a hit piece or they're going to do some kind of mockery. I really could care less. But hopefully they're past that. Hopefully they're past just the knee-jerk mockery because it's not like you don't have a point when you say I don't trust what's on the screen without some kind of second opinion. And in certain cases, we don't have those second opinions. And we have a point, and I'll mention this. I'll mention how, I'm not going to call it mind aids, but how people just believe whatever because they don't have any kind of critical thinking filter if it's coming from approved sources. Think about the space chorizo. You had some scientist put a slice of salami in front of some stars and he shared it on his Twitter and millions of people thought it was the most beautiful star they'd ever seen. Like, yeah, this is a star. It's 4.2 trillion light years away. And luckily, before people started tattooing it on themselves, because a lot of these space fans these space cadets, they love their religious art. They see these images and they think it's real. Well, luckily for them, he revealed it was a hoax. But my point is, it shouldn't be that easy to hoax people who think they have some type of, they think they have some kind of scientific operating system. Like, I believe the science, I trust them, therefore I'm operating in a higher mode of thinking. No, you're not. You're basically a cultist. Elephant Tusk says, what are your thoughts on Space Force and why was it created? Well, for one, Space Force now controls all military satellites. That is revealing because it reveals just how probably fake everything about any big military maneuver really is. It's not like anybody's tricked on the inside on that level, but the fact that they have the Space Force over it, I think that's very revealing. As far as their purpose, it's probably for this upcoming space war. Space Wars has been in the predictive programming for some time. Star Wars, Space Wars. In fact, do you remember the cyberspace or the cyber hackers that hacked that pipeline? And they were called the Dark Side. That was the name of the group. And the Dark Side comes right out of, it was the Colonial Pipeline hack. And it was a Russian cybercrime group called the Dark Side. If you only knew the power of the dark side. That's a Star Wars reference. Well, Star Wars is what Ronald Reagan called Space Wars. And I think that is the whole point. I don't believe Musk really has 42,000 CubeSats in space. By the way, if you take your Space Force hat and flip it upside down, you get the head of Baphomet. And Baphomet is the Masonic god of forces. Space is the abyss of dark matter, your inner space, your mind. Space Force, in this interpretation, could reference the like the Force, like the Jedi Force. We're talking about the uh, whatever these occultists believe that they're channeling. Use the Force. That's what it is. If you ask, I mean, that's the meaning behind the fantasy that the soldiers are told. Like, I'm joining Space Force. They imagine themselves getting in some kind of a craft and going up there and, shooting down enemy satellites. But no, you're just going to be in a cubicle staring at a screen. It may have another function as well, but I think mainly it has to do with the upcoming Space Wars. I want to point this out. On 2/2/21, which was the 33rd day of the year, and this is the day Jeff Bezos stepped down from Amazon. All very significant. But anyway, Starship SN8, final days before SpaceX's first 15-kilometer Starship flight. Musk's SN8 rocket crashed on 2/2/21, the 33rd day of the year. I think it's a ritual of Satan falling. SN8, S8N, Satan. Bezos launched into space later that year at 9:11 a.m. So I think it's just kind of a ritual of some kind. And then I looked at the engine, and the side of the engine actually has the number 42 on it. Nothing about the space program, whether it's NASA or it's, quote, private or it's the military, none of it's real in any meaningful sense. It's all about mind control and your inner space. Right now, they want to work on getting rid of mind junk. Mind junk are, mind viruses, unapproved ideas. And at the same time, we're getting acclimated to the existence of space junk, which also has to be eradicated. And I point this out because the leading purveyor of both mind and space junk is Elon Musk. And he's there to set an example for the UN to point at. This is why we can't let rich people and these space cowboys like Bezos lead us into the future. We can't let them dominate the internet because they're going to kill us all. That's kind of the underlying meaning there. I pointed out, and I'm just saying this is a little prescient, I said, watch, mugshots are the new swatting. Like the new swatting psyop. It's getting your mugshot. Because you have to portray like you're a victim, you're a rogue, the system's after you. So all the right wingers from Bannon to Marjorie Cameron and Tim Pool, they get street cred when they say, yeah, they came after me, they swatted my house, the bad guys tried to get them to kill me. It works. And Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene saw Trump got a mugshot and realized, oh, she missed an opportunity. And she wasn't totally up there kissing his rump like Laura Loomer, who chased off Marjorie Taylor Greene, by the way, after the little event there at the jailhouse. But anyway, Rep. Greene puts her own face on a mugshot and tweets it. She didn't even get a mugshot, but here she is, smiling, throwing herself into the mix. It's for clout. It's Jerry Springer-esque. It really is. All right, we've talked about Portal to Babylon, did the review, and as I expected, and as others have noticed too, that movie is definitely just inculcating the youth with the New Age goddess and all that represents. It's iconoclasm, and it all ties into the nuke. She's a bombshell, 1946, the first nuclear tests, Bikini Island tests, where they were associating the explosion with the bikini model. And the reason for the Barbieheimer juxtaposition that they put out there is because, and this became very clear after watching Barbie, the New Age involves the destruction of the nuclear family. And that's why the little girls at the beginning were bashing their baby dolls' heads on the rocks, because they wanted to go to Babylon or Barbylon. They wanted the career, the money, they making men superfluous, genitalless Ken dolls. Yeah, that's the future. Just pointing it out. We were right about that. And the movie did have a whole lot of pink and a lot of just such phony fakeness, and it was, it was like a long SNL skit, and I watched Cocaine Bear after and felt a lot better. But if there's anything you want me to watch, because you don't want to, but you think it might have some predictive programming value, let me know. I will do the opposition research. I will do the deep dives. All right, going after your comments. Lean Dion says the Matrix is after me. Andrew Tate. Oh, Andrew Tate is Cypher from the Matrix. Same archetype. Andrew Tate's also they're trying to repackage him as a conservative. I listened to this like 3-hour interview with him and Candace Owen. Candace Owen's friends with Jason Aldean, Ye, and now with Tate. Not a coincidence that Candace Owen is close with all of these right-wing agitators, all these operatives. Her husband is the CEO of Parler, and Parler was used for a lot of the 1-6 organizing. And if you remember, when Parler started blowing up as the alternative to Twitter, there was this white racist serial killer in Georgia going to massage parlors, and they called him the Parler Killer. I'm like, that's interesting. Parler shooter. Parler was under attack. Bezos had just pulled the servers. Yeah, Atlanta spa shooter. 8 dead, anti-Asian. The Atlanta spa shootings. And again, the Google suspends Parler. Like, I searched Parler shooting, and 2 headlines come up. One of them is Google suspends Parler social networking app. 4chan shows how platforms are only accountable to. Oh, here we go. This is again saying that they're blamed for the shootings. Yeah, the platforms cause the shootings. They suspend Parler. But then at the very top you have Atlanta Parler shooter. I'm saying that he's fake. In fact, many suspect, and I kind of thought there might be something to it, that the shooter might actually be Dylan Roof's character, or the actor who played Dylan Roof, repackaged with the fashy haircut, came back as the Parler shooter. Not unbelievable. My point is, it's another one of these things where they're able to attack something indirectly, kind of like the serial killer who looks just like Tucker Carlson. That can't be a coincidence. All right, this is Infinite Plane Saturnday. Tomorrow we are going to be live at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, so it's going to be much earlier. We have a guest. It's going to be Fakeologist. Should be very interesting. And then on Monday or Tuesday, we're going to have Woo's News. So we haven't even closed out our first full month here in the office, and we are already getting a number of guests lined up. And then after those, I have a few others scheduled as well. Then we have a documentary crew coming in to do a couple of interviews, and they want to record a live stream, or rather record me doing a live stream here with the think tank. And we have our own projects. We have the new textbook rolling out. Everything is moving according to plan. There's so many things to go over right now. I've been digging through my old Twitter feed on the Metascript front, and as you know, it's deep. It's endless. This idea of the Trump head wound thing, we talked about this in the summer of 2022, and I just want to point this out because I brought up Joker, the character in Full Metal Jacket, played by Matthew Modine, and how he represented JFK. Well, Matthew Modine is in Stranger Things. He's the big mind control guy. And at the end, he gets shot at this portal at the grid coordinates 116. So here's another 116 and a portal reference, and a guy who previously was in a JFK role in a Kubrick film gets shot. Now, Joker, in this JFK role in Full Metal Jacket, is wearing a target on the side of his head where Kennedy got shot, and it's replete with Kennedy references. But the interesting thing here is that you have this 45 on the side of his hat, right where the target would be. And now he's got a 45 and a 47, which gives you what? 9/11. And then on July 4th of that year, which was 2022, you had this shooter. And this shooter had a 47 tattooed on his temple, right where Trump has the 45 on his hat, and now has a 47 on his temple with his new hat that says 45-47. Again, you add 4 and 5, add 4 and 7, you get 9/11 right there on the side of his head. Matthew Modine being the connection here, but then in the new role that he's in, he gets shot right before the crack opens. So the season 4 of Stranger Things opens with a crack in the earth opening, like a literal kraken. And you have what looks to be fallout coming down from the sky, like radioactive fallout. It's ashes from the hellfire, from the fires below. But the fascinating thing here is that that's one of the examples of fallout that ended on a season 4 with a major TV production. Westeros burns, end of Game of Thrones, and that's when the winter comes. And they keep saying winter is coming. And I think that's got to be a reference to a dark winter, which is what you get after a nuclear bomb goes off or a nuclear war. So winter is coming. Well, when the winter shows up, you have the snowflakes coming down as Westeros burns, which represents the west burning. And you're seeing the snow coming down, and it looks like fallout. Just a reoccurring theme here, the fallout. But anyway, the shooter has a 47 on the side of his head tattooed there, and he went out to various Trump rallies. So here you have a shooter going to Trump rallies, and he's dressed like Waldo from Where's Waldo, which is kind of a weird facet to the whole story. But you got to put 2 and 2 together here. You have this shooter going to Trump rallies. And then there's more. In his bedroom, he has photos of Lee Harvey Oswald on the wall. So I've been saying, where's Oswaldo? Because you have this guy dressed like Where's Waldo going to Trump rallies with a 47 tattooed on the side of his head. And then he goes, and on 4/7 or 7/4, July 4th, he shoots up a patriotic parade. Fascinating story. Again, that's the Highland Park shooter, which was in the news as the Parkland High shooter was in the news. Highland Park, Parkland High. And where did JFK go after his head wound? Parkland Hospital. So these are all just connections that are making a pretty straight line from JFK's work to Trump's head wound. And this all ties back to the very first thing I mentioned tonight when I was going through my photos of the KUBRICK stare that Trump exhibited on his mugshot. Like what I've been saying and what I said last year when I put this together is that whatever goes down with this Q thing, it's all part of the same script. It's all interconnected, and that whatever happens with Trump was scripted by the same person who scripted the Kennedy. In other words, Zapruder didn't. Well, I guess maybe Zapruder is just an actor in this, but I'm saying that Zapruder didn't shoot the event. It would have been Kubrick. Oswald didn't shoot Kennedy. Stanley Kubrick did. And that this is a continuous psyop. It's all interconnected. And you can't separate Kubrick's predictive programming from the Kennedys. And you cannot separate Q from the Kennedys. So here you have Trump with his Kubrick stare. Again, he's about to be 47. And as we all have, pretty much seen again and again, the number 9/11, 3/11, these are generally associated with major league psyops. And having a 9/11 on the side of his head is about as blatant as you could possibly get. And when he started putting out this hat with the 45, 47 on it, and a lot of people are selling them now. It's like 9/11 right there. You can't even see it. In your face. Trump 45, 47 hats for sale. Elephant Tusk says, any chance you can stay on for another 30 minutes? I would like to. Tomorrow, though, we will be on much earlier. We'll have Fakeologist on. And we will also be speaking with Woo's News a couple of days after that. I want to talk to him about January 6th, the predictive programming that went into it. The fact is, January 6th, 1 6, I can show you all kinds of examples of the white nationalist Turner Diaries narrative connected to the number 1 6. Like the 1.6 million rounds that they had at Waco before they were torched. The 1.6 billion rounds the DHS bought of hollow points that triggered Alex Jones, who was radicalized at Waco. Trump kicks off his campaign, calls it the final battle at Waco, the day after Netflix releases Waco, American Apocalypse. Everything about this is scripted. Anybody following Trump is following a Pied Piper at this point. But Woo's News is going to be good. Diana South says JFK files are still sealed. You know, even the name JFK, the initials JFK, very much encoded. As we'll have to mind map this out separately. That's one of the things this video is going to feature are mind maps, because when you see what we're talking about isn't some guy who was contracted by the government because he was really good at making movies to fake a moon landing. No, we're talking about the World View Warfare Department. And weren't all those Nazi rocket scientists that were imported, Project Paperclip, weren't they pretty much just mind war and rocket science? Well, worldview warfare and rocket science. Think TV and the space program, how they put us all into this alternate reality box. I mean, ultimately, it's intriguing because it's the dominant world religion, and people don't know that it is a religion because they've been dragged into this world stage. And it's really important to note that in 1946, when the world was convinced of the existence of the atom bomb, it put geopolitics in a new context. We all have to get along or we can all die. It put us into a circular firing squad. It put us into a collective hostage situation, which creates Stockholm Syndrome, where people begin to love their captors because they identify their survival with the survival of their captors. And we're all captive audiences to the MSM mind war. Elephant Tusk says, have you looked into this whole state of emergency regarding the election interference that Trump set into motion in 2018? Apparently Biden keeps extending it. I will. The whole purpose of emergencies is the emergence of this order out of the chaos that they foment and create. In fact, I was looking into this in 2020, where like 9/11 started in 1968 as our emergency number. 33 years later, 9/11 happens. 3/11 is also an emergency number. We know what happened then. 11/3, 3/11, all these numbers are strongly associated with this agenda of using emergencies. By the way, the first time that SOS, which is an internationally recognized emergency symbol, the first time it was used was 11/3, 1906. Like 11/3. Very significant date in all of these psyops. The first time I see a mention of it is actually in that Ingersoll Lockwood book about Baron Trump and the time travel thing with the disputed election on a Tuesday, November the 3rd in New York. There's this riot scene it opens up with. That's how far back that particular number has been used with this particular agenda. But when you think about it, these numbers and these dates, they have a template that goes back even further. 9/11 is the New Year on the Coptic calendar. It has to do with Sirius rising. Our New Year's Day, Sirius. The dog star begins to fall at midnight. It reaches its highest point. The ball drop is Sirius, the dog star. So my point is, all of their dates and all these things, these various psychological operations, they're coordinated with something that is much older than the mainstream media, which is just the newest iteration of this older monolithic power. I say it's the new monotheism. The monolithic, globally controlled media is the new monotheistic religion. Only it's not the eye of God, the eye of providence, the all-seeing eye. Now it's the all-seeing camera lens. It's like HEL 9000 or Otto or Skynet. Anyway, this has been great. We'll be live tomorrow. Get on the newsletter for the archives, and I will blast out text notifications to get the biggest turnout for tomorrow with Fakeologist. This is Ball Earth Cult, Chief Crow. A link to the track will be posted below. You can go to Bandcamp and support the artist.
Seven, a bunch of important numbers. 11, a bunch of important